Hello. Before we begin, just a couple of things for you to know. If you need to exit the theater, raise your hand, and a cast member will direct you. Today, you will be drawing, so make sure you have all the necessary tools on hand. Let's see. Paper, pencil, and a clipboard. That should do it. If you are missing any of these important tools, just raise your hand. And if you need assistance, like you have a broken pencil, or you decide that a coloring sheet might be a better fit, no worries, just raise your hand. There are several cast members on hand in the theater to swiftly come to your aid. And finally, get excited, because the fun is just about to begin. Welcome, friends, to the animation experience at Conservation Station. Since the 1930s, Disney animators have put their pencils to paper in service of the idea that the greatest inspiration often comes from the magic of nature. Walt Disney himself understood the importance of spending time around animals, studying their behavior and personalities in order to create realistic characters and dynamic storylines. This meeting of the human and animal worlds sparked a legacy of storytelling that has shaped our relationship with animals and conservation forever. Today we invite you to become a part of that legacy as our own Disney artists help you learn to sketch characters inspired by the very animals found here at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Get your pencils ready, because here comes our animation artist now.
Did everyone enjoy themselves at Disney World today?
Yes!
Alright, excellent. Welcome to the animation experience here at Conservation Station, everybody. My name is Quick. Hello. I'm going to be teaching you how to draw Rafeiki today here at Rafeiki's Planet Watch. Are we excited? Yes, alright, excellent. Now, before I begin with drawing Rafeiki, we actually wanted to start by taking some time letting you guys know why it is we're drawing Lion King characters right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to look to our monitors and see our inspiration.
I'll tell you a story. The story of Mufasa. A story! So glad I brought some crickets.
When The Lion King was released 5 years ago, Disney teamed up with the Wildlife Conservation Network's Lion Recovery Fund
to protect the pride and conserve lions in the wild,
working towards a vision to double the number of lions across Africa by 2050.
Since that time, and with support from many of you, the Lion Recovery Fund has been able to fund more than 300 projects across 25 countries in Africa.
With at least 50% of sites in which LRF is investing already showing stable or increasing populations of lions.
You can't survive on your own.
Nobody can. And yet, here we are.
There's more to be done, and you can help.
We must stand together.
To celebrate Mufasa the Lion King, Disney is once again supporting the Lion Recovery Fund and their efforts to ensure a future for lions.
The Lion Recovery Fund is working across Africa to maintain lion habitat
and joining forces with local communities to protect lions on behalf of the world.
Your fight is my fight.
Your support is critical.
When we come together to protect lions, we protect important habitats for all kinds of wildlife.
From meerkats and warthogs to hornbills and hyenas.
And we build hope for a future where lions and people thrive.
To learn how you can protect the pride,
visit disney.com/Mufasa Protect the Pride.
All right, are we all feeling pretty inspired now? Yeah, are we feeling ready to draw Rafeiki?
Let's go!
Yes, all right, excellent. And if you look down at our paper, you can see we've got some guidelines on there for you already using technology. You're welcome. I've got this nice little perfect circle already on there for you. It's usually step one, draw a perfect circle. Ta-da! Let me zoom in a little bit closer. There we go. Now, we have this line that's also marked in the middle of the face. These two that are going to go ahead and help us out with the eyes. And I'm going to actually start with his brow, make brow above his eyes. And I'm going to use this top eye line to begin, starting on the end of it. And I'm going to start off nice and light, nice and sketchy. I'm just going to rough in the general shape and idea of this brow first. Nice and light, I'm going to pull up kind of aims towards that bendy line, then it's going to bend before it hits it. Instead connects to the bendy line in the middle, that's the dip in his brow. It'll keep going. It'll almost hit the other bendy line, but then it's going to bend down. And then bend over to connect to the other line that we started on. This nice, big, long, bendy shape with a little dip in the middle. And now that I've sketched it out very lightly, nice and sketchy, kind of messy, and what I can do is I can continue to feel it out, adjust it, change it, and I'm doing it nice and light and sketchy at first because, well, I don't have a rubber thing at the end of my pencil, and you don't have a rubber thing at the end of your pencil. So what I can do now is I can start to go back over and darken in my favorite of the light sketchy lines. And when I do that, the light lines that I don't darken in, they start to fade to the background of the drawing. It becomes part of the life and the breath of the drawing. So it gives me more than one chance to get my lines and shapes right before I've committed to them too much. Now if at some point you do make a dark line you don't like, you still have a few choices. You can always be like Elsa and let it go. Or you can just wait until you find one of those rubber eraser things out in the wild somewhere. They do still exist. They do still work. So now I have the top of his brow kind of in place. I'm going to work on the bottom side of it, which for the bottom side, it'll start just right above this eye line, just right before we touch the brow, just outside of the circle. And this is going to curve over towards the middle of the face and starts to drop down as it becomes the bridge of the nose. And because it becomes the nose, it's going to trail down next to the middle of the face, but it's never going to touch it. On the other side, it's going to do a similar thing, except I'll start on the edge of the circle this time. It'll pull over and down, getting right close to the middle line, but never touching it. So it's going to pull down, become the nose. And just leaving it nice and light. I'm going to pull it down, it's going to become the nose itself. We also have these two lines down below. That's going to be where the nostrils are. And you can darken the nostril edges in now and connect them to a little curve at the base. It's going to be where the bottom of the nose is going to end up. But what I'll do is I'll take those nice light lines. It'll start to extend down the face. And it'll start to bend out as it hooks around the nostril. Down and up to meet the line. So you have like a little almost icicle hanging down there for the one side with the one nostril. Other side I'll do a little bit differently because his head is turned slightly to the side, so we're seeing less of the right side. So on the right, it'll pull down, start to hook around this side, but it'll graze the end of it, and then hook right back up. So everything's kind of pushed going back behind that line, this one. So it'll kind of be up against the line instead of around it. And again, I did this all nice and light, nice and sketchy, so I can go back over, adjust these lines, and smooth them out, and find the exact moments I want. And once I find those lines I like, I'll go back over, and I'll darken those in. Now Rafeiki here, he's a mandrill. Mandrills are the largest type of monkeys that there are. And they have these nice, at least the males have these nice bright red noses that we're going ahead and we're drawing on this nice bright red nose. They also have the bright blue on their faces. There are a couple things about Rafeiki that were changed about him as compared to actual mandrills though. Mandrills have like very short stubby tails, kind of like a goat. Like a goat's short little stubby tail. Rafeiki has a much longer, more classic monkey tail. This was done kind of for a few reasons. But largely it was to make his body language more expressive because it's giving him a longer spine, basically gave them more to work with for posing him, so larger body expressions and poses to be emotive with. But as far as his red nose here goes, I'm going to go ahead, we have to close off where the nose stops and the brow starts because his brow isn't red and right now it's just kind of all connected. Just a little line there to divide it. line from the bottom of the brow and kind of leads to the nose. Now the nose does have 2 shades of red. It's got the darker red at the bottom and the brighter red as it goes up. And I'll do a little divide for that. Starting from the one corner on the side, dips down in the middle, and then it pulls up on the other side. Our mandrills are going to be out on the safaris. Has anyone seen our mandrills out today? A couple of you? Excellent. I know it's chilly out, so some of the animals aren't fond of that. But if you haven't seen the mandrills, haven't gone on safaris, or they weren't out, if you wanted to see one, there's a picture of a mandrill up on the paintings of animals over by the exit tunnel, right by the walrus making the kissy face up above. That's going to be the mandrill there. That's where you can see those nice bright colors, nice bright red nose that we just kind of gave Rafeiki just now. The next thing I'm going to give him is I'm going to start to work on his eyes. Now for his eyes, they're going to sit, again, in between those 2 blue lines that were originally on the paper, but now underneath those brows. And they're going to be big dome shapes in the sense that they're basically half circles. So I'll do a big curve or a half circle. Half a circle or a very crooked letter D for the top of this one. The other one's going to be a little bit squished because, again, of the turn of his head. It's still nice and close to that middle. Up and down, a little bit more squished on that one, just a little bit. Well, then as far as the bottom goes, I didn't darken in the bottom or draw that in because his cheek is pushing up against the bottom of the eye. It'll push up there and then roll underneath. Push up and roll under. Because when you smile, it pushes your cheek up against the bottom of the eyes. You want to give Rafeiki a nice big friendly smile. It's a very friendly character. Of course, the longtime friend of Mufasa. Even his name, Rafeiki, means friend in Swahili. And when it comes to Rafeiki's character, they actually had to figure him out quite a bit because the original idea for him is he was going to be this very, he's this mentor character, he's this wise sage, and originally the idea he was going to be very, very serene, very calm, very gentle. But Robert Guillaume, who's the voice for Rafeiki, went in to record because they make the script first, and then they make the storyboards a bit, and then the voice actors come in, record things, and then they actually start animating everything. And when Robert Guillaume came in and tried to figure out what Rafeiki would sound like, he figured out Rafeiki's laugh, this nice, big, really bombastic laugh. And at that point, they ended up reworking Rafeiki. He ended up reworking Rafeiki what he wanted Rafeiki to sound like. And Rafeiki became much more of a very playful but wise mentor character. Very much more kind of fun, but still wise and sagely at the same time. And that's how they actually figured out what Rafeiki would be like for his personality. It was through that laugh and through his voice. And then they reworked him from there. Right now he's got his eyes on the front of his face, as apes and monkeys both do. It gives us depth perception, kind of tell how far away things are. And I'm going to go ahead and just give him some pupils. You can kind of choose where you want him looking. I'm going to have him looking towards us, so I'll lightly put them both in, make sure that they're working well together before I commit to them too much. Just lightly you can pick which direction you want them looking. Now I might lower this one a little bit if I need to lower them. Just kind of adjust them. Does anyone here, by the way, know the difference between monkeys and apes? Anyone tell me what the difference is? There's a couple differences, but there's one really quick, easy one.
No tail?
Huh? I think I heard someone say it.
No tail?
Tail, yeah. What about the tail specifically?
Don't have one.
Yeah, apes don't have tails. Yep, monkeys have tails, apes don't have tails. So you've got monkeys like mandrills here, or cotton-top tamarins, or they have tails. And apes, like chimps and gorillas or orangutans, they don't have tails. So I'm going to break all of your reality a little bit right now, and I apologize for that, but Curious George, he's not a monkey. He doesn't have a tail, he's an ape. I believe he's supposed to be a chimp, actually. No, he's not actually a monkey. Chimps aren't monkeys. I know, it's a whole new world now. Sorry about that. Alright, and speaking of monkeys, we gotta work on this guy. Next thing I'm gonna give him is, he's an older monkey. I'm gonna add in some wrinkles under his eyes here. Show a little age. Right in that little space in between the eye and what's left of our circle there. I might also add a couple wrinkles at the top of his head for his brows. A couple. A little extra age up there. And now that I have his eyes and his nose in place, I'm going to start to move down and work on his mouth. And to get his mouth in there, we actually have to add in the edges of his head and his face here. So for the edge of his head and his face, this curvy line down here is going to be for the bottom of his jaw, so we can kind of see where we're aiming for. But I'm going to start up here. I'm going to connect together from one brow to the other, starting to kind of pull the side of his head in here. Now when it comes to this next line, he's got this big bushy sideburn that's pushing up against the side of his face here. So this is a little bit of the fur pushing up against the side of the face, which I'm mentioning that because fur in animation is a fluid. It shifts around, it moves as the character moves, or as the wind blows, or there's any motion. So it's not something that needs to be stagnant and stiff and always exactly the same. You can kind of shift it around, it can move a little bit differently. It's going to push in a little bit and then down. Mostly you want to get the general style of it, but don't feel like you have to get these lines for fur exactly right. Those can kind of shift and move. It's going to just push in a little bit from the sideburns, then it starts to push out. And the jaw itself, that line will actually just extend up and go back behind it. And disappear back behind the fur that's happening. And then I'll go back over, I'll darken in this little push of the fur. As far as the jaw goes, when I want to go back over and darken in the jaw itself, when I get to the bottom here, I am going to pull up in the middle. I'm going to do a little curve to give him a bit of a cleft in his chin. Although honestly, this is mostly just where his beard attaches. So it's kind of the beard pulling up on his chin a little. And I just go over the rest of that line for his chin. And once I've run out of line, I'm going to push back in to the left, so a tiny bit, upish to the leftish, tiny bit for his lower lip. Now we have to attach it to the upper lip. So for the upper lip and this side of his face, I'm going to just go back up to the top and do what I did before, connect the two parts of the brow together with a little line. Just pushing in the side of his head right next to his eye a little right here. Now for this side of his face, we are actually seeing the edge of the face itself. We're not seeing the fur pushing up against it. So this side, we're going to see his very prominent cheekbone. Kind of goes out, and then back in a little towards the nose. Once we kind of reach right next to our nose, I'll then bow out ever so slightly for the upper lip. It connects down below, so a nice pushing out, big curve for the lower lip. A nice prominent pointy kind of cheek here, kind of pointy. Angels actually can, as far as their cheeks go, they have cheek pouches the same way like a chipmunk or a hamster does. They can store a whole bunch of food in their cheeks. They can actually store a whole meal in their cheeks to carry elsewhere if they want to carry their food elsewhere, to eat it elsewhere. Or if they just ate and now they're full and they want to save it for later, so they put it in their cheeks and carry it off to move it elsewhere. They're omnivores, so they'll eat lots of different things, although they primarily prefer fruits. They eat a lot of fruit, and that makes them good seed dispersers because when they eat the fruit, they are very messy, so they'll carry the fruit far away from where the plant originally was, and they'll eat it messy and drop a bunch of seeds and help spread the seeds far away from the original plants. There's lots of animals that do that. They're very important for plants and helping them out. Now for his mouth, you can kind of start to see where the two lips are meeting. I can now pull over for the smile, starting from where the lips meet. It pulls under the nose, and then it'll start to pull up all the way until it's just about to meet where the hair is. Nice big tall smile. If If you see the mandrill picture up on the wall, you'll notice that the male mandrill also has these big sharp teeth sticking out. Mandrills, their canine teeth are really long. They can be about 2.5 inches big. Long teeth. Rafeiki, he does have these really large canine teeth. However, he's polite, so you only see them when his mouth is open, not when his mouth is closed. If he's laughing really big, then you'll see his big teeth. And otherwise, he keeps them inside his mouth, because he's polite. Now, when you see a picture of Rafeiki, he does look really complicated. Like, you look at his face, he looks like he's going to be really tricky to draw. That's because he has all these markings running down his face, which look really tricky. The good news is they look a lot harder than they actually are. They're not that hard. It's basically, we're going to draw a couple stripes going down. And you already have the main part of his face. You got his eyes, his nose, his mouth. You have his facial features in there. Just going to go ahead and add in his markings now. Starting with the navy patches around his eyes, which we have the sides and the top for. We're just missing the bottom, which the bottom is the same bend as the line for under the eye. Now it's just kind of closing off this little area. Oftentimes in animals, if they have darker coloration around their eyes, it helps reduce glare from the sunlight. So just these little curves under the eye. Kind of mark in where the navy blue around his eyes are. I'm going to do a nice little gentle shade around that to remind myself it's a little darker blue there. You don't have to shade anything if you don't want to. Shading is a step you can completely skip it, or you can save it for later if you want. If you're ever catching up on anything and you need time to catch up, shading's a good chance to kind of catch up on other things. So that's for the dark blue. For the lighter blue, we just drew the top of that part. The bottom of it is going to start right behind the hairs, right above the corner of the mouth, and it's going to bend down to the corner of the nose. Slide down to the corner of the nose, and then pull up from the other side of the nose, a little line right there. So there's the separation of the lighter blue. So here's where all the light blue is going to be. And then for the stripes, we're just going to draw that same line again, just 3 more times. 1, 2, 3. And that gives us where his stripes on the face are. 1, 2, 3. Which in a still picture is not too tricky to add those in. Now as far as animating him, it would be pretty tricky, because trying to move his face around in 3-dimensional space would get complicated with these lines and keeping them consistent with each other. Especially with animation, keep in mind there's 24 frames for every single second of film, so there's a lot of drawings that are happening. Rafeiki was designed by Joe Grant and animated by legendary animator James Baxter. Any fans of James Baxter out there?
No.
No? You might be, and you might just not know it. James Baxter has done character work like Rafeiki. He was the lead animator for Rafeiki. I'm going to go ahead and put a little light shade on his bottom of his nose, because why not? James Baxter, though, mostly these days, he's the kind of guy who gets hired in to work on a single shot or a single scene from a movie or a TV show when it's a 2D animation, but they want to have the characters turn in space in a really fluid and complex way, because that's really tricky to draw, to kind of understand the 3-dimensionality of a character that well. So he comes in and draws characters in single moments in movies. Like if you think of the ballroom scene from Beauty and the Beast, where Belle and the Beast are dancing and it looks like the camera is somehow panning around them and they're twirling even though it's still flat drawings on paper the whole time. That's him. That's him animating that part, because that's really tricky to do. Alright, we have his face. Last part of him that isn't hair are his ears, which his ears are mostly being hidden by hair. These 2 lines right here are the tops of his sideburns. If you want to just kind of go over those 2 lines, the tops of those sideburns sticking out. And then the tips of his ears are just sticking out above that. There's a monkeys, apes, primates, all have very similar shaped ears, so just little rounded tips of an ears sticking out. And a little extra curve over the top of the one that you can see the side of. Look at his ears. And I'm going to add in the top of his head and start to add in the hair. Like I mentioned before, the fur is fluid. It shifts around. You don't have to worry about keeping it exact. You don't have to count how many strands I draw and draw the exact same strands. You just want to get the general style down. But I'll pull from the side, and his hair up here sticks right up. Kind of like he's a Robinson. Rafeiki, do you want to be a Robinson? As far as his hair goes, most of his hair is either gone white or gray on his head, but the hair up at the very top, that's still black, so if you wanted to shade that, you could shade that. It's the darkest part of his hair on his head. Everything else is gone white or gray. And now all that's left is all the white hair. I can zoom back out now so that we can get room for his beard. His beard, I mentioned, is going to connect to the chin down here. I'm going to very lightly put in the shape of it first as it pushes in and over. Kind of a little tail with like a ghost. A ghost tail. Very long, elegant kind of beard happening. And once I've lightly roughed in the general shape, what I can then do is go back over, darken it, and break it up into some smaller pieces. Here and there. And that's pretty much what I'm going to do for the rest of his hair. I'm going to draw the general shape lightly, and then when I darken it in, I'll break it up into a couple smaller pieces, little wisps. I'm going to lightly rough in the full shape for all of the rest of his hair, and then go back over and darken that all in and add it all in at once. Next, we got to put in the sideburns and in the back of the head. Sideburns will just go from the curves we have, and then tuck back behind the beard. Goes from there and it goes back behind the beard. And then for the top, it'll pull from behind back of the head, put that line, and then down. Which we now have a giant shape of a heart. His hair is heart shaped. And then I can start to go back over and I'll break up his sideburns into these big roundy floofs. Rounding off the fur does help it look a little bit softer. If you do want to see some other monkeys with some white fluffs today, we do have our cotton top tamarins. I know it's a little chilly, so they might not be out as much today. But they're going to be back across from the Creature Comforts, which is our Starbucks. Which I hear Starbucks is a place where you can get coffee. I don't know, I don't drink coffee, so I'm assuming you can get coffee there. But what I've heard is that our particular Starbucks, there is a coffee called a flat white. I'm not sure what a flat white is, I'm assuming it's a coffee. But when you get that flat white at our Starbucks here, the proceeds to that beverage go to helping out cotton top tamarins in the wild because they are a very endangered little monkey. So if you were interested in helping out some monkeys and you need some coffee, that's a good way to think about doing it if you like what flat whites are. Again, I don't know what they are, I don't drink coffee. But I'm assuming it's a beverage, so it's probably yummy. Now for the top, his hair is sticking more right up on the back of the head. Just imagine Albert Einstein a little bit. They probably thought about Albert Einstein a little bit when they were designing this guy. So a couple little wild hairs going right up. Wild mess of white hair. And then the plant starts to pull down. Nice little fluffy zigzags. For his hair. And once you've gotten his hair in there, you've pretty much finished Rafeiki. Again, I'm not going to shade in his hair because that's all kind of stark white. The only part that's still dark is his little bit on the top of his head. But how are we doing? How are we holding out? That great, huh? Well, as you finish up your drawings, take a moment to look down at them. Maybe they turned out better than you thought, or you're feeling kind of proud. If that's how you feel, congratulations, you're an artist and I'm so proud of you. Or maybe looking down and just like, wow, this looks terrible. And if that's how you feel, congratulations, you're an artist and I'm so proud of you. Because it doesn't matter how you feel about your work in the end, or even how it turned out that makes you an artist, but the fact that you created something in the first place. So you should feel proud. You should be sure that you sign your name, sign it, date it. Today's date is 1/13/25. Yes.